The phone rang at 2:47 in the morning. I remember the time because I'd been staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, thinking about the ring in my coat pocket downstairs. I was going to propose to Claire again. Properly this time at her parents' old cabin, the way she always said she wanted. Hello. My voice was thick with sleep. Is this Daniel Reyes? A man's voice. Official. Careful in that way that meant bad news. Yes. Who is this? Officer Daly, State Police. Sir, I need you to come to Miller's Bridge on Route 9. There's been an accident. My chest went tight. An accident? What kind of accident? Who? A vehicle registered to Robert Reyes went off the bridge into the river. We believe there were 3 occupants. 3. My parents, I said. And Claire. Claire was with them. She was staying at their place tonight. She said she'd get a ride back in the morning. Sir, I need you to come down here. Are they okay? Just tell me they're okay. The line went quiet for half a second too long. Please come to the scene, Mr. Reyes. I don't remember getting dressed. I don't remember the drive. I remember gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. And I remember praying out loud, which I never do, saying please, please, please like it was the only word I knew. When I got there, the bridge was lit up like a stage. Red and blue lights bouncing off the black water. Officers standing in small clusters. Someone's radio crackling static. I left my car in the middle of the road and ran. Sir, you can't be here. That's my family's car. Where are my parents? Where's Claire? A tall officer stepped in front of me, hand raised. Are you Daniel Reyes? Yes. Yes, I'm Daniel. Please, just tell me they're alive. He didn't answer right away. That silence told me more than words could have. We haven't recovered anyone yet, he said finally. What does that mean? You haven't found them? The current's strong tonight. We've got divers in the water, but so far... He hesitated. So far it's just debris. Parts of the car. No survivors located. No bodies recovered. The words didn't fit together in my head. No survivors. No bodies. Like Claire and my parents had simply stopped existing. That doesn't mean they're dead, I said, mostly to myself. That means you haven't found them yet. People survive things like this. Claire's a strong swimmer. She swims every summer at the lake. She could have. Sir, she could have gotten out. My dad too. He's stubborn. He wouldn't just... My voice cracked in half. I thought about the last thing Claire said to me that afternoon, laughing on the phone. Asterisk, don't wait up. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you, Danny. Asterisk. I thought about my mother's hands, how she used to hold my face when I was small and tell me I was her whole world. I thought about my dad teaching me to drive on that very bridge, telling me, slow down. Son, some roads don't forgive mistakes. I walked past the officer before he could stop me and stood at the edge of the guardrail, staring down at the black river swallowing the flashlight beams whole. Claire! I screamed her name into the dark. Claire, answer me. Nothing came back but the sound of water against rock. Claire! A hand touched my shoulder. I turned, ready to fight whoever it was, and found a man in a plain coat, badge hanging from his neck, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Not pity exactly. Something sharper. Mr. Reyes, he said quietly. I'm Detective Grant Miller. I have some questions for you, when you get a moment. I barely heard him. I was already turning back to the river, still screaming her name, still waiting for her voice to come back to me. It never did. 3 caskets stood in a row under a gray sky, and none of them held a body. I didn't know that then. All I knew was that the divers never found them, that the river had taken everything, and that the funeral home said a closed casket ceremony was still possible. For closure, they said. For peace. You sure about this, Daniel? My brother Ben asked, standing beside me in his black suit, hands shaking as he lit a cigarette he didn't finish. Empty caskets. Doesn't feel right. They're not empty, I said. They have their things in them. Mom's scarf. Dad's watch. Claire's. My throat closed. Claire's ring box. It felt wrong to bury nothing at all. Ben looked away from me fast. Yeah, right. I didn't think anything of it then. I think about it now. A woman I barely knew touched my arm gently. Daniel? I'm Sophia. I work with you, the design floor, third desk from the window. I wanted to come. I'm sorry. I know that probably means nothing right now. It means something, I said, because it was true. Nobody else from work had come. Thank you. She stayed beside me through the whole service. Didn't try to fill the silence with empty words. Just stood there, solid, while the priest talked about love and loss and things I couldn't hear over the sound of my own heartbeat. Afterward, a man in a gray suit approached me, holding a leather folder against his chest. Mr. Reyes? I'm sorry to do this today of all days. I'm lawyer Whitmore. I handled your Aunt Teresa's estate before she passed last year. Aunt Teresa? The name barely registered. My father's sister, distant, private, dead almost a year now. I didn't know her well. What is this about? There's a matter of her will. It's complicated. Substantial, actually. I tried reaching your father about it several times before the accident, but he never returned my calls. I don't understand. What kind of matter? An inheritance, Whitmore said carefully. Larger than most people expect from someone who lived so quietly. I'd hoped to discuss the details with your parents directly. I stared at him like he was speaking another language. My parents are gone. My fiancé is gone. I don't care about money right now. I don't care about anything except the fact that I can't find their bodies. Whitmore's face softened, but something behind his eyes stayed sharp, calculating. Of course. My condolences. We can revisit this when you're ready. There won't be a ready, I said, and walked away from him toward the caskets. Sophia followed, quiet, keeping her distance but close enough that I could feel her there. You don't have to talk, she said. I just don't think you should be alone right now. I should have been in that car, I said. Came out before I could stop it. Daniel. I stayed late at work, finishing a stupid structural report that could have waited until Monday. Claire called and asked if I wanted to come to my parents' place for dinner, and I told her no, I had to finish something. If I'd gone, I would have driven. I always drive. Maybe I would have taken a different road. Maybe none of this happens. You can't know that. I know I wasn't there. I know they were in that water and I was sitting at a desk looking at blueprints. Sophia didn't argue with me again. She just stood there while I stared at 3 caskets that I thought held everyone I loved, and let me carry a guilt I didn't yet know was built on a lie. The priest said final words. Dirt would be placed later, after the crowd left. The funeral director told me quietly. One less thing for the grieving family to witness. I placed my hand on the casket in the middle. Claire's. I'm sorry, I whispered, so only she could have heard it, if she'd been there at all. I should have come home. Behind me, Ben was already walking away fast, toward his car, like he couldn't stand another second at that grave. I didn't notice. I was too busy burying a woman who wasn't in the box. 6 months later, Claire's toothbrush still sat in the cup by the sink. Her side of the closet still smelled like her perfume. I hadn't moved a single thing. You still keep her side of the bed empty, Sophia said one evening, standing in my kitchen doorway with a bag of takeout she'd started bringing twice a week, whether I asked her to or not. I noticed the blanket, folded, like you're saving the spot. Habit, I said. Daniel, it's been 6 months. I know how long it's been. You went to the bridge again yesterday. That's the 4th time this month. I like to think, I said. It's quiet there. Sophia set the bag down and looked at me the way people look at something they're afraid to touch too hard. I'm not trying to push you. I just don't want you disappearing into this. I'm not disappearing. I'm remembering. There's a difference between remembering someone and refusing to live without them. I didn't have an answer for that, so I said nothing, and she let it go, because that's who Sophia was, patient in a way nobody else in my life had been since the funeral. Detective Miller called 2 days later. Mr. Reyes, got a minute? For what? You told me the case was closed months ago. Officially, yes. Unofficially, some things never sat right with me. Mind if I ask a few questions? Fine. Your fiancée, Claire Whitfield. Did you know she took out a life insurance policy about 3 weeks before the accident? My stomach dropped, but not for the reason he probably expected. She mentioned wanting one. We talked about getting married soon, starting a family. It's normal to think about that stuff. It's normal timing that bothers me. And the car, no bodies recovered in 6 months, is unusual, even in a strong current. Divers usually find something. Clothing. Bone fragments. We found nothing. So what are you saying? That they're still out there somewhere. Alive. My voice rose without permission. You think that's easier for me to hear than the truth? I'm saying the pieces don't fit clean, and I don't like loose ends. Detective, respectfully, I buried them. I stood over 3 caskets. I don't need you turning grief into a conspiracy because a river didn't cooperate with your paperwork. I understand this is hard. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're asking me to believe the woman I loved lied to me, faked her own death, and left me to fall apart for 6 months. That's not an investigation. That's cruelty. Miller was quiet for a moment. I'm not accusing anyone. I just don't close cases with holes in them. Then close this one anyway. Please. I can't keep reliving it every time someone decides to look closer. Understood. I'll leave you be. After he hung up, I stood in my kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing. Sophia found me there 20 minutes later, exactly where I'd been when the call ended. You look pale, she said. What happened? Miller again. Insurance policies, missing bodies, nonsense about inconsistencies. I shook my head. He wants me to doubt her. I won't. Nobody's asking you to doubt her, Daniel. He is. And I won't do it. Claire loved me. My parents loved me. Whatever happened on that bridge was an accident, not a plan. I sat down at the table, suddenly exhausted in a way sleep never touched. I just want them back. That's all I want. Sophia sat across from me, quiet, watching me with something that looked almost like worry for a different reason than grief. I know, she said softly. I know you do. She didn't say what she was really thinking. I wouldn't have listened anyway. Ben stopped answering my calls somewhere around month 7. At first I told myself he needed space. Grief hits people differently, and Ben had always processed things quietly, alone, ever since we were kids. But quiet turned into something else. Missed calls turned into voicemails he never returned. Voicemails turned into me driving to his apartment unannounced because I hadn't heard his voice in 3 weeks. He opened the door looking like he hadn't slept in days. Empty bottles lined the kitchen counter behind him. Ben, what is this? I'm fine, Danny. Just having a rough patch. A rough patch doesn't look like this. I stepped inside without asking. You haven't returned my calls in weeks. Sophia asked about you. I didn't have an answer. I don't need people checking on me. You're my brother. Of course I'm checking on you. He laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. Cracked in the middle. Right? Brother. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. He grabbed a glass off the counter, poured something amber into it, hands unsteady. Nothing. Forget it. Ben, talk to me. Please. I've lost enough people this year. I can't lose you too. He froze at that, glass halfway to his mouth, and set it down without drinking. You haven't lost me, he said quietly. Then what is this? The drinking? The silence? Avoiding me like I did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. His voice cracked harder this time. That's the whole problem, Danny. You didn't do anything. I don't understand. He sat down heavily at his kitchen table, put his face in his hands, and for a moment I thought he might actually say something real. Something that would explain the months of silence, the drinking, the way he flinched every time I mentioned Mom or Dad or Claire. Ben, I should have told you, he whispered. My chest tightened. Told me what? He looked up at me, eyes red, mouth opening like the words were right there, right on the edge. Then he shook his head hard, like he was shaking something loose, and the moment shattered. Nothing. I should have told you I'd be there more. After the funeral. I left you alone too much and I'm sorry. That's not what you were going to say. It's grief, Daniel. It does strange things to people. Makes you say things that don't make sense. He wiped his face fast, stood up, put distance between us. I'm sorry I've been distant. I'll do better. I wanted to push. Every instinct told me there was more sitting behind his eyes, something heavier than grief. But he looked so broken, so genuinely wrecked, that I told myself I was imagining things. Grief made people say strange half-sentences. It made people drink too much and disappear for weeks. I knew that better than anyone. I was living it too. Just answer my calls, I said finally. That's all I ask. I will. I hugged him before I left, and he held on longer than usual, like he was trying to say something through the silence he couldn't say with words. I didn't know then that I was hugging the only person who could have told me the truth that night, and that he'd almost let it slip through his fingers before swallowing it whole. I drove home thinking about brotherly grief. I should have been thinking about guilt. 2 years is long enough for grief to stop being a wound and start being a shape you carry. Sign here and here, initial there. Lawyer Whitmore slid the paperwork across his desk. This finalizes the death declarations for your parents and Ms. Whitfield. After this, the estate can be settled properly. I held the pen longer than I needed to. 2 years, and it still feels like giving up on them. It's not giving up, Daniel, Sophia said from the chair beside me. She'd started coming to these appointments without me asking, the same way she'd started showing up to everything. Sunday dinners, hospital visits when I got the flu bad enough to need one, the quiet evenings when the silence in my apartment got too loud. It's letting yourself breathe again. When did you get so wise? 2 years of watching you not breathe will teach a person things. I signed the papers. Robert Reyes, Linda Reyes, Claire Whitfield, officially legally on paper dead. There, Whitmore said, gathering the forms. For what it's worth, Mr. Reyes, I think you've handled the last 2 years with more grace than most people could manage. Some days don't feel graceful. Most days don't, in my experience. He paused before closing his folder. Before you go, there's one more matter. Your Aunt Teresa's inheritance. It's never been claimed. I told you 2 years ago I didn't want to deal with it. I understand, but there's something you should know. Someone attempted to claim it about 8 months ago. Using forged signatures, your father's specifically. The bank flagged it and rejected the claim before it went through. The room went very still. Forged signatures. My father's been dead for, according to that paperwork I just signed, 2 years. Which is exactly why the claim was rejected. Whoever attempted it either didn't realize the death certificate had already been filed with the bank, or assumed no one would check that closely. Who would do that? I don't know. The bank couldn't trace it conclusively. I only just found the flagged record last week while preparing today's paperwork. He slid a card across the desk. I'd recommend caution, Daniel. Someone out there knows about this inheritance and isn't being honest about it. I stared at the card without picking it up. Everyone I loved is dead, and someone's trying to steal from a woman I barely knew while wearing my father's name. This day just keeps getting better. I'm sorry to add to it. Outside the office, Sophia walked beside me in silence for a block before speaking. You okay? I don't know what I am anymore. Numb, maybe. That's better than what you were a year ago. I almost smiled. Almost. When did you become the person who keeps track of my emotional progress? Since somebody had to. She bumped my shoulder gently. Ellie asked about you again yesterday. Wanted to know if her favorite tutor was coming by this weekend. Ellie, my neighbor's 8-year-old, who I'd started helping with math homework almost a year ago, back when Sophia gently pushed me to find something outside my own grief to hold on to. It had started as a favor and become something I looked forward to every week. Tell her I'll be there Saturday. We're doing fractions. She'll be thrilled. Fractions are apparently her nemesis. For the first time in 2 years, I laughed, really laughed, not the hollow imitation I'd been performing for Sophia's sake. She looked at me like she wanted to say something else, something bigger than fractions and Saturday plans, but she didn't. Not yet. I didn't know it then, but somewhere out there, someone with my father's forged signature was watching an inheritance slip through their fingers, and they wouldn't stop trying. I was in Portland for 3 days, consulting on a bridge retrofit project, when I saw her. She was sitting at a corner table in a cafe 2 blocks from my hotel, laughing at something on her phone, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear the exact way Claire used to. I stopped walking. Just stopped. Right there on the sidewalk, and stared. Couldn't be her. I knew that. Grief did strange things. Sophia had told me that 100 times over 2 years, and Detective Miller had said something similar once, back when I still refused to hear it. But my legs carried me toward the cafe window anyway, heart slamming against my ribs. The woman looked up. Not Claire. Similar hairline, similar build. A stranger's face wearing a ghost's mannerisms. She caught me staring and gave a polite, confused smile before looking away. I stood there another full minute before I could make my legs move again. That night I called Sophia, my voice still not steady. "You sound strange," she said immediately. "What happened?" "I saw someone today, at a cafe." For a second I thought. I stopped, embarrassed even saying it out loud. I thought it was Claire. "Daniel." I know it wasn't her. It's been 2 years, I signed the papers myself. I know she's gone. It shook me more than I expected. That's not crazy. That's grief. It doesn't follow a schedule. It felt real, Sophia. For a second, it felt so real I couldn't breathe. You're allowed to still feel that. It doesn't mean you're going backward. I appreciated her more than I said out loud that night. She always knew exactly the right amount of reassurance to give without smothering me in it. I'd barely hung up when my phone rang again. Detective Miller. "Mr. Reyes. Sorry for the late call. Detective. It's been a while." "It has. Listen, I wouldn't be calling if this wasn't important. The case file was never fully closed on my end. I kept a personal copy. Kept digging when I had time. I found something you need to know about." My stomach turned cold. "What kind of something?" "A security photo. Gas station. About 90 miles from the crash site. Timestamped 4 months after the accident." "Okay." The photo shows a woman matching Claire Whitfield's description. Similar height, build, hair color. Face partially obscured, so I can't confirm it conclusively. But it's enough that I can't sit on it anymore. The room felt like it tilted sideways. "You're telling me she might have been alive for months after I buried an empty casket for her?" "I'm telling you there's a photo that raises serious questions. I know how badly you wanted this case closed. I know what today already put you through, from what little you told dispatch when you called earlier asking about station protocols in Portland. That wasn't about this. Maybe not. But your voice tells me tonight's already been strange." A pause. "I think it's time we talked in person, Mr. Reyes. Tomorrow, if you can manage it." I looked at my hotel room ceiling, thinking about a stranger's face at a cafe window, and a security photo of a woman who wasn't supposed to exist anymore. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Tomorrow." I didn't sleep that night. I sat across from Detective Miller in a small interview room, the security photo face down on the table between us because I couldn't stand looking at it a second longer. "Give me everything," I said. "Not pieces. Everything." Miller opened his file. "I've been building this quietly for months. Ever since the insurance inconsistencies stopped sitting right with me. What I have now connects further than I expected." "Start talking." Claire Whitfield had a relationship with a man named Marcus Cole. Private investigator work confirmed it, hotel records, phone logs, going back at least a year before the accident. My hands went flat on the table, steadying myself. A year. She was with him for a year while she was engaged to me. There's more. Marcus Cole has a record, fraud, forged documents, 1 prior arrest for insurance manipulation that never stuck. He's good at disappearing paper trails. What does he have to do with my family? Your Aunt Teresa's will, Miller said carefully. I pulled the full document. Certain portions of that inheritance required proof of death for specific family members before the funds could transfer to remaining heirs. An old clause, unusual but legal. Your father would have known that. Your father needed money badly, Daniel. Gambling debts, mostly. Cole found out, and found a way to profit from it. The room went very quiet. You're telling me my parents faked their deaths for money. I'm telling you the accident was staged. No bodies were ever in that car when it went into the river. Cole arranged it, timing, insurance, the works. Your parents agreed because they were desperate. Claire agreed because Cole convinced her the payout would set them all up for life, and she'd finally leave you for him once the dust settled. I didn't cry. I expected to. Braced for it even, but instead something in my chest just went still and cold, like a switch flipping off. And Ben, I said quietly, he knew. Your brother refused to participate. Wouldn't fake his own death. Wouldn't lie to your face directly. From what my source indicates, Cole and your father threatened him. Said if he talked, they'd make sure he took the fall for the fraud instead. That's why he couldn't look at me. That's why he was drinking himself into the ground for 2 years. It appears so. I stood up, walked to the wall, pressed my palm flat against it just to feel something solid. Where are they now? Unknown. The claim attempt on your aunt's inheritance 8 months ago, using your father's forged signature, suggests they're still trying to access the money, which means they're still together, still coordinating. They tried to steal it after everyone believed they were dead. Correct. And when that failed, they went quiet, which tells me they're regrouping, not giving up. I walked out of that station without saying goodbye to Miller, drove straight to Ben's apartment, and didn't bother knocking. Danny, you knew. My voice came out flat, controlled, nothing like the wreck I'd been at that funeral. The whole time, every visit, every silence, every drink. You knew they were alive. Ben's face crumpled. I wanted to tell you. God, Danny. I wanted to so many times. But you didn't. They said they'd frame me. Said if I talked, I'd go to prison for something I never agreed to. I was scared, and I hated myself every single day for it. I buried empty caskets, Ben. I screamed her name at a river. I signed death certificates 2 years later because I finally let myself have closure. And you sat across from me at dinner, knowing the whole time. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. I said it without warmth, without anger even. Just fact. I believe you're sorry. That doesn't undo 2 years. I left him sobbing in his doorway and drove to Sophia's apartment instead of my own. She opened the door and her face fell the instant she saw mine. Daniel, what happened? You look. She stopped, studying me. You're not crying. No. That scares me more than if you were. They're alive, Sophia. All 3 of them. It was staged. Money. An affair. My own brother threatened into silence. My voice stayed level the entire time, which felt stranger than anything else that night. I'm done grieving people who were never gone. Now I want to know exactly how they're going to lose everything when they come back. They came to my door on a Tuesday evening, 3 weeks after Miller's file landed in my lap, like they'd rehearsed exactly how this reunion should go. I opened the door and there they were. My mother first, tears already running. My father behind her, jaw set, trying to look composed. And Claire, at the back, wearing an expression I used to call soft and now recognized as calculated. Daniel, my mother said, reaching for me. Oh, thank God you're. Don't. I stepped back before she could touch me. Don't do that. We know this is a shock, my father said quickly. We can explain everything. It wasn't what it looked like. I know exactly what it looked like. Miller gave me the full file. Aunt Teresa's inheritance clause, the staged accident, Marcus Cole, Ben being threatened into silence for 2 years. Which part am I supposed to be shocked about? My mother's face went white. You know, I know all of it. Claire stepped forward, voice trembling in a way I once would have fallen for completely. Daniel, please. I know I hurt you, but I came back. Marcus is gone. It's over between us. I want to come home. I want us to be a family again. You didn't come back for me, I said. You came back because the inheritance claim finally went through and you needed to appear alive to spend it. I read the bank filing 3 days ago. Claire, don't stand in my doorway and call it love. That's not fair. Fair would have been telling me the truth 2 years ago instead of letting me scream your name at a river. My father stepped forward, all pretense of softness gone. Enough of this. We're your family, Daniel. Whatever mistakes were made, we're still blood. And that inheritance belongs to this family. We need access to it now that we're back. You don't have access to anything. Excuse me? I pulled the folder from the table behind me, the one I'd been preparing for 3 weeks with Whitmore's help, and held it out. "Read it yourself." My father snatched it, scanning fast, and I watched his face change as the words sank in. "You declared us dead 2 years ago, legally, with death certificates, with the state, with the bank. You should know, you were the ones who staged the accident that made it necessary. You can't do this." "I already did. When Aunt Teresa's inheritance clause activated on your reported deaths, I was next of kin. Everything transferred to me, properly, legally, months before your forged signature attempt got flagged. That money is ours. It was Aunt Teresa's. She left it to whoever survived to actually deserve it, and none of you were in any position to argue when you were supposedly at the bottom of a river." My mother sobbed harder. "Daniel, please. We're desperate. We have nothing left." "I know exactly what you have left, because I have what you don't. The money funded my life for 2 years. It paid for Ben's therapy and his recovery from the drinking your silence caused. And last month, I started a foundation in Aunt Teresa's name, scholarships for engineering students who can't afford school. Her legacy is finally doing something honest." "You spent our money on strangers," my father said, disgusted. "I spent her money the way she should have wanted it spent. Not funding your gambling debts and not funding whatever life you three planned to build somewhere else while I visited your empty graves every week." Claire's composure cracked fully now. "Daniel, I still love you. Please, just let me explain." "You had 2 years to explain. Instead, I got a security photo from a gas station and a forged signature on a bank claim. That's the only version of the truth you ever offered me." "What happens to us now?" my mother whispered. "Legally? That's between you and the authorities. Detective Miller has the full file: fraud, staged death, insurance manipulation. I imagine he'll want to talk to all 3 of you very soon." "You'd let them arrest your own parents? You let your own son bury 3 empty caskets and cry himself sick over people who were sipping coffee somewhere alive. I think we're well past who's allowed to do what to whom." I stepped back and closed the door slowly while my mother sobbed. My father shouted something about lawyers, and Claire stood frozen on my porch, mouthing my name like it still meant something between us. "Didn't. Not anymore." I walked to my kitchen, set the folder down, and for the first time in 2 years, felt something that wasn't grief, wasn't rage, wasn't guilt. Felt like standing on solid ground. Marcus Cole was arrested in a motel 2 states away, 3 weeks after my parents showed up on my doorstep. They found him with half the forged documents still in his car, Miller told me over the phone. "Sloppy in the end. Your father and Claire are both facing fraud charges. Insurance manipulation, falsified death, forged banking signatures. It's a long list. And my mother? Cooperating fully. Might avoid the worst of it. She's saying she never wanted any of it, that your father pushed her into going along." "Maybe that's even true," I said. "Doesn't change what happened." "No, it doesn't." I thanked him and hung up, and for the first time, closing that chapter didn't feel like losing something. It felt like finally setting down something too heavy to carry any further. Ben came by that weekend, sober 40 days and counting, sitting across from me at my kitchen table like he used to before any of this happened. "I want to tell you everything," he said. "All of it. Not pieces this time." "I'm listening." So he told me, the night Dad first brought him into the plan, how Ben refused outright, how Marcus threatened to frame him for the fraud if he ever told me the truth. The year of drinking to bury the guilt of watching me grieve people who were alive and choosing silence anyway. "I should have told you," he said when he finished. "No excuse changes that." "No," I agreed. "It doesn't. Can you forgive me?" "I don't know yet, but I know I don't want to lose you too, so I'm choosing to try." He nodded, eyes wet, and for the first time in 2 years, it felt like I was looking at my actual brother again, not a stranger drowning in guilt. That Saturday, I drove out to Miller's Bridge with Sophia and Ellie in the back seat, kicking her feet against the seat, chattering about a fraction problem she'd finally solved on her own. "Why are we stopping here?" Ellie asked as I parked near the guardrail. "I used to come here a lot," I said, "to think about people I lost." "But you didn't lose them." Sophia said they came back. They came back, I said slowly. But not the way I needed them to. Sometimes people are alive and still gone, Ellie. That's its own kind of loss. Sophia stood beside me at the railing, the way she had at every important moment for 2 years straight, quiet and steady. You okay? She asked. Better than I've been in a long time. I looked at her, really looked, and let myself feel the thing I'd been too afraid to name for months. Thank you for staying, for not giving up on me even when I was impossible to reach. I never thought about giving up, she said simply. Not once. Ellie tugged my sleeve, pointing at the water. Is this where the bad thing happened? It's where I thought I lost everything, I said. But I didn't really. I found people who actually stayed. I looked at the river one last time. Not screaming, not begging it to give anyone back. Just watching it move, steady and indifferent, the way it had for 2 long years. Then I turned toward Sophia and Ellie, toward the only family that had ever truly chosen me back. I stopped grieving people who were never really gone. I started living for the ones who never left.